Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, 5 Things to Know Before Your Windchill Upgrade. We'll explore the when and why of upgrades, look at planning, timelines, and share how you can turn upgrades into improvement opportunities. And before we get started, just a quick reminder to submit your questions anytime in the Q&A panel. I'll be sharing these with the presenter to answer in real time. If you don't get to your question during the presentation, we'll be sure to reach out with answers after. Now, I am pleased to introduce today's presenter, Solution Manager Mark Carbonara. Let's
Thank
get
you,
started.
everybody. So we're going to talk about 5 things you need to know about Windchill when you're talking about doing an upgrade. So it really comes down to, how we go by doing upgrades, what is the best time, what are the next steps about this. So a little bit about myself. I've been doing Windchill work for 19 years. I've been doing designing, building, implementing, upgrading. Really, what my job and role here at EAC is talk to clients, understands needs, wants, desires for anything PTC products related. I've been upgrading countless instances from small ones that may take a few weeks to ones that will take many, many months. Very complex systems. I was a solution architect before I joined EAC. So I've been able to understand where clients are coming from a upgrade perspective and what their needs and desires for Windchill are. So here at EAC, we are a learn first organization. And what our main goal is to help companies design, manufacture, connect, and service all their products. So why are you upgrading? Really comes down to 4 major topics. Is there something in the environment that needs updated? It could be you're on an older version of Windchill. What is the CAD application that you're using? The CAD applications come in and they change yearly. Windchill can only support so many different versions of this CAD application at any given time. Great thing about Windchill is it's CAD agnostic. It doesn't matter if it's Creo, SolidWorks, CATIA, NX, AutoCAD. Windchill can work with any of those different products. And another thing that we're coming across is a lot of clients are moving from on-prem to the cloud. What does that mean? How does it go by doing that? We will touch on that topic later on as well. So when we talk about something in the environment that needs updating, it really comes down to what is the CAD applications that you're using? Is it a certain version of Creo that you're using that needs to stay updated for this version of Windchill that you want to go to? Another thing that we're understanding is a lot of the CAD vendors, CAD is not backwards compatible. So if you was to design something in Creo 9, but here we are months later, the OEM is going to be using Creo 10, those Creo 9 CAD drawings need to be on the newer version, new capabilities of that. So you would have to check it out, check it back in with the new version. The problem with that is here we are with all your designs in Creo 10, it will not work with Creo 9. So we need to understand, when you go by upgrading any of your CAD software, your CAD applications, and not just Creo, it's for any of those. What does that mean when you go by upgrading? Another thing is the server and the operating system. You may be thinking about you want to switch to Server 2022 for SQL or Windows. This also works with Oracle as well and Linux-based operating systems. It may not be compatible. So when IT gives us that, hey, we're moving to a different operating system, or upgrading to a different operating system, Does your current version of Windchill support those as well? So when we get into the PTC release calendar, this is where we spend a lot of time with our clients, just trying to understand what is the best path forward for them based off of what is the release calendar, what is the target version of Windchill you're trying to go to. As you can see, there's many different releases of Windchill, not just for the 13.0 family, but the 13.1 family. What is the target version that you're at? How long will it take to get up to that version that you want to go to? So when we talk about release calendars, this is where we get understanding of what is the current date, when did it come out, what is the software support date that end, so we can give the clients the best recommendation of when you upgrade to Windchill, what is your supported software versions. Another thing that we need to understand when we talk about upgrading Windchill is the Windchill Workgroup Manager for non-Creo applications. This has changed over the last couple years. It used to be what version of Windchill you were on was a very particular workgroup manager that you would go to. That recently changed a few years ago that depending on what version of Windchill you're at, there's multiple different Windchill workgroup managers that work, which also means there are different CAD applications that you would work for as well. So we'll just say 13.0.2 works with these 4 different versions of Windchill, which I have the compatibility matrix below when we'll send out the slide deck. You can click on the link and it will take you to the web page where that is stored. You can see what different CAD applications are supported in the versions of Windchill and the Workgroup Manager. Another thing that we really talk to clients is, do they want to take their on-prem instance to the cloud? What does that mean? What is the process of go by doing this? We have tackled this for many different clients that just want to understand what is the process to take you from on-prem to Azure and AWS. This is not a SaaS model. This is a client-owned Azure and AWS instance. So what we do is we take that system, install the new wherever that the client wants, whether it's in Azure, AWS. How does that look? What is the difference between the two? And how do we go by doing those upgrades? This is not a data migration as it states. We will literally take your system, put it into the cloud, run the upgrade manager on that new production instance in the cloud, and it allows the clients to test and understanding it. We love doing this during the upgrade because we're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, where we can conquer the upgrade and we can move that client to Azure or AWS as needed. So number 2, what does the budget look like? When we start talking about understanding what a upgrade would look like, we've had many different conversations about, hey, we're just preparing for next year. We want to understand what our upgrade path could look like. Now, the budget, it can be influenced by many different things. Are you getting new hardware? What is the specs of that new hardware? What is the IT policies around it? Do we have to have single sign-on enabled? Are we moving it from on-premise to the cloud? And then the big one is, what version of Windchill do you want to go to? There is a difference between a single hop upgrade versus a double hop upgrade. A single hop upgrade for an instance is going from 11.1 to 12.0. For example, a double hop upgrade could be going from 11.1 to 12.0 to whatever version of 13 you want to go to. Now, when we do these double hop upgrades, it does require us to have more hardware in place. We have to install what is called a temporary system, which is getting it from one version to the next. It's kind of like a pit stop to the final version that we have. So when we talk about what does the budget look like for next year, it's we take all these different considerations in place. What is a single hop upgrade versus a double hop upgrade? What is the additional cost? What is the hardware that is going to be needed for that as well? And by us doing this, it allows clients to really understand what they need to budget for either next year or the year after as well.
A question come through here, Mark.
Hmm?
So what happens if we want to add Windchill modules? Should we do that when we upgrade?
So, great question. The Windchill modules, it really comes down to what are we adding? Are we talking about just adding, Windchill Navigate, which is on its own separate server with ThingWorks? Or are we talking about, hey, we want to add NPM Link, for example? We get to understand that piece during the scoping call, but it's best to not do that during the upgrade, but as a second project after the upgrade's complete. Now, can we do this? Yes, it just adds more risk and more time to the upgrade. Because when you upgrade, you have to upgrade apples to apples. You can't add a module while the upgrade manager is running and expect Windchill to upgrade. It's not going to allow you. So it's either best to do it after the upgrade is done because there's going to be new capabilities added by going from, like, let's say Windchill 11.1 NPM link is going to be different than Windchill 13.0 NPM link. We did touch about this, the versions. What is a single hop? What is your current version, and what version do you want to go to, and how that upgrade impacts not just the timing, but also the cost as well. And we work with clients all the time to understand their best path is, hey, if we do this double hop upgrade, you may not need to upgrade for another 3.5 years because there are certain releases of Windchill that are supported until 2029. So we work with clients best determine the correct path for this. And when we give them this version, we will give them a, hey, here is your single hop and here is your double hop pricing as well. Why we need new hardware. This has always been a great question to ask the IT staff. Is when we conduct any upgrade, we require new hardware to be present. Now, gets into the, hey, what version of your Windchill that you want to go to and why we need new hardware. We love upgrading on new hardware. One is it allows us to conduct the upgrade and you can test what is your target version and what is your source version side by side. So it allows clients to understand what that is. When we do any sort of upgrade, we're talking about the hardware for all different pieces that Windchill has, whether it's the CAD workers for the publishing, whether it's Windchill, whether it's Windchill Navigate. We really get into what new hardware is going to be placed, and it's not just for production. We're talking about the non-production systems as well. IT policies, always a great topic to talk about. The newer versions of Windchill have the newest security features built into it. So years ago, the Log4j security issues that were popping up, Windchill needed an update or an upgrade to go by and fix those. So, what is the latest version? Why can we keep the latest and greatest? Is the latest and greatest the best option for us? And what are the database versions that and operating system that we have to have? Another thing is the integrations. When we talk about integrations, it could be any sort of WinCom apps that you can buy in the PTC marketplace. It could be anything from a ERP integration. How does that work? What is there anything new coming out in the newer releases of Windchill that will help with these integrations? Think of the Windchill REST service updates that been happening over the last couple years. Those are big integration points that will drive an IT policy as well. So when can you upgrade? When we talk to clients about upgrading is, do we have a budget for this calendar year or is it for next year? When we talk about this, we balance all the risk of the system. Do we have the money in place that we can upgrade right now? We have clients that will go by and say, hey, we have the hardware ready. We have the access that your consultants will need figured out. We have everything that is needed. Can we upgrade before the end of the calendar year? We have special staff that just handles upgrade here at EAC. And we were able to knock out many, many upgrades. Do we need to consider a test environment? The answer is if you're talking about considering any sort of changes to the environment over time, whether it's new workflows, whether it's just any sort of access to the application. You may want to test single sign-on. It's great to consider having a test environment as your playground for this. And then when it comes time to do these little configuration changes, you have a system that is considered production like, may not have all the data, but from a testing perspective, the data doesn't really mean all that much. We're more concentrated on, hey, are these test environments have the same configurations as production so we can test against it?
Another question for you here, Mark.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you can move to cloud hosted.
Yes.
IT is looking at making the move from an on-prem to either AWS or Azure.
Hmm.
What does this process look like? And is it different from a typical upgrade?
Is it typical from a different upgrade? Minor. It's minor from a, hey, we got to do this little configuration differences. So we have moved multiple clients from on-prem to a cloud. What does that mean? We will talk to clients about what Amazon EC2 instances that are needed or what Azure instances that are needed. What is the version of SQL that you're going to? In Azure, you can use the headless SQL server that is provided, where we just export the database, go to the Azure instance, import the database, rerun the upgrade manager. One thing that we have to consider when we move from on-prem to a cloud instance, it doesn't matter which one, is how do we move the file vaults from point A to point B? How do we keep everything in sync so when it comes to go live weekend, everything is there? So we'll talk to clients about how do we move all the read-only folders, which is going to be about 95% of all their vault content. We will stage that in their AWS or Azure instance. Then when it comes to go live weekend, we will talk to clients, understand, is there any new folders that were created? How does it go by doing this? And we will take those newly created ones when we turn off the system for that go live weekend, move them over. Now, this is a client task. We will help, we will understand, we will guide them through how to move the data from place to place. But it really helps to understand when we talk about, hey, we want to move to the cloud. Are we moving not just the Windchill, but are we changing the domain? Are you going changing the URL? We can always do that during the upgrade as well. And then the final piece is when it comes to go live weekend, having everybody working as a team, the consultants and the IT staff and the testers, what they're going to be testing in the Azure space or AWS space, you can call it. So we get into very in-depth conversations of how we go by moving that environment. Let's just say if we upgrade Windchill on your on-prem, that will be one cost. Then we'll decide, hey, a couple months later, we really want to move that environment to a cloud. That will be a whole separate cost as well, just lifting and shifting the environments. When we do this during the upgrade, we're basically doing 90% of the work together as one single go live event instead of having multiple go live events, multiple testing strategies. So we found out that if we was to do an upgrade and an environment move to a cloud instance, it's best to plan for one go live event instead of multiple ones. It actually decreases risk when we get into it as well. So why we do these test environments. So when we do an upgrade, this is kind of how we perform upgrades. So whether we do this on-prem or whether we do this in the cloud, we will set up what we call the to-be production environment. It allows us to scope out the system from a hardware perspective. So when clients are testing, they're testing to apples. It's going to be the exact same hardware specs, or maybe even more hardware specs on the to-be production. We will perform the upgrade. We will run as many rehearsals as we need during this time. We pick a weekend when everybody is offline, whether it's a Friday or a late Friday or a Saturday morning. We then will take that Windchill system, shut it off. We will upgrade to that new system, and that to-be production system, we call it production. So now that we are here, we can contest apples to apples comparisons of what is the to-be production versus the old system. And once everybody gives a thumbs up that the upgrade was successful, all the testing was great, everything worked the way that it needed to, that old system, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's on-prem, can technically just be turned off. And so you're now live on a to-be production system. And what we do with this is after the production system has been upgraded, the to-be, any clients that have non-production systems, dev, test, QA, we will rehost that production instance, the to-be production instance, to the non-production like systems. So we typically do this a day or so after production is live, and it allows us to rehost that to-be production to the non-prod systems, test, QA as well. So the uniqueness of environments is a big topic. At EAC, we will do any sort of technical upgrade assessment to prepare the environment. What does that mean? We will look at the configurations in a system. Do you have any customizations? Any third-party tools that were used? Wincom apps are a big thing. Do you have to contact Wincom that, hey, we're moving to Windchill 13? Do we have this new plugin available? Any bigger configured workflows? What is the downstream ERP systems that are connected to it? Do we have to rewrite any of that code during the upgrade as well? And another thing is is PLM versus PDM. What does that really mean? PDM, consider that just as a CAD vault. You are connecting your CAD applications to Windchill to store all your data, whether it's lifecycle driven, release driven, iteration controlled. When we talk about PLM is taking all that data and actually running workflows on that system. What does it look like? Do we have npm link involved where we do the BOM transformation? All of that dictates what an upgrade would look like. And the last but not least is single sign-on. A lot of security is going to be built around having single sign-on work in the future. This has been a big topic for the last couple of years, just around the authentication piece. How does Windchill work with single sign-on tools with Okta and so on? How does EAC go by hooking up single sign-on for this as well? We've enabled single sign-on for countless clients, so we have a really good idea when it comes time to an upgrade. What does that mean? Who from the client, IT staff, and networking will need to be a part of that conversations. So, number 5, opportunity to reevaluate current systems. So, when we talk about expanding a footprint of Windchill, are we talking about rebuilding workflows? What is the best time to go by rebuilding the workflows? Is it before, after, during? You want to change the footprint of your system, moving AWS, moving to Azure or AWS. Like I said before, that questions popped up is when is the best time to add modules? Uh, Honestly, the best time is after an upgrade, not before, and certainly not during. Have we done during? One time because a client had to, but it is not recommended to add any modules during an upgrade. You want to add them afterwards. And another thing that we've been coming across is domain changes. What does that mean from a domain change? It's not just a URL change. It is also editing all the different email addresses that are inside the system. And we do offer tremendous amount of Windchill admin training as well. The best time to do the admin training is after the first rehearsal on the new upgraded system. We have a dedicated training staff that will walk you through what the new admin courses can be for Windchill, whether it's, hey, we need to make these changes from a access control rule perspective. How do we go by doing that? Workflows. Maybe it's changing the endpoint for a ERP connection. Instead of having an FTP, we want to have a network drive. So our training classes really get into some hands-on type of work on how all of the reevaluating of your current system to what your new system would be. And one thing I would say is if you're looking to doing any sort of workflows or changing the footprint, adding modules, it is best to do that after the upgrade, not before or during. Reason why I say that is there could be source code that is in your workflows that you are calling for the source system. PTC may have deprecated the code or changed how the code works. So it's always best to do that afterwards so you can actually see that. We've made changes before. A couple months later, a client says, okay, we want to upgrade. And the changes that we made on those workflows prior to the upgrade, we had to go back and make changes after the upgrade as well because of the source code that PTC has. So when we talk about next steps, So really what I want clients to understand is they need to start what they're planning for. Why are they upgrading? Are there going to be multiple outages? What was an incident? What does your budget look like? Does it fit this fiscal year? Would it be something for next year? What is your current timeline? Is one of the questions we ask clients all the time. Are we talking about right now? Are we talking about in a couple months? It's not going to necessarily change the cost, but it would help us and you understand what the timeline for a typical upgrade would look like. You know, are there any uniqueness in the system? What is their configuration sets? Start understanding all of that information, and we can start putting together an actual plan of what this looks like. And are there any areas in your system you like changing? You want to rebuild a workflow, you want to add ERP, you want to add Windchill Navigate. All of those things are considerations during an upgrade. So for the final steps, you know, we set up scoping calls for every single upgrade that we do. You may not be able to answer all of these questions on your own. But here at EAC, we have a tremendous amount of experts that can help you answer those questions. Myself, members of my team, we do this all the time with clients, whether we're talking about upgrades or whether we're talking about an implementation. We want to understand and learn about the organization first. Really, we'll ask all the questions, all those big five questions that are brought up, and we will put together a plan not just for what an upgrade look like, but for whatever implementation questions that you would have as well. So all we ask is, set up a scoping call. Won't cost you anything. You're going to be talking to our consultants, and we will answer every possible question that you could come up with, just around upgrades. So in conclusion, I just want to thank everybody, for your time today. And that's it.
All right, Mark, I do have another question here. This one's
Sure.
from a previous slide. Do you have any advice for folks on the call regarding chasing down whether someone's instance has any of the customizations that we walked through?
So great question. So there are certain folders inside of Windchill that will actually tell you where your customizations are. So inside of Windchill, so if you go log into the application server, you go to the PTC directory, Windchill, and you're going to go laundry list of folders. Inside those folders, there are two distinct folders to look at. WT Safe Area is a great place where every PTC consultant will put in their customizations. That will allow during the upgrade, those folders don't get touched, but it allows consultants and clients to see what is actually custom in the system. Now, there could be custom roles, custom lifecycle states, custom groups, or there is custom code that is in a system. The one everybody would care about is the custom code. Now, during an upgrade, those roles, groups, users, we will take those files that are there, take them to the target system, drop them in, run two commands, and they're there. But the custom code is really where it gets into. And also another place to look is how many CAD workers do you have? Do you just have one? Is it just Creo, or are we talking about SolidWorks and X? So if you was to log into Windchill in the UI, go to Site Utilities, there is a CAD worker administration page. That will tell you how many different CAD workers that you have. Each one of those potentially will need upgraded, especially if you're changing CAD applications. We always want to upgrade those to the newest release of the software, whether it's SolidWorks, Creo, doesn't matter. That way, whoever's checking in data will be able to have those representations published in the system. So think about the WT Safe area and the CAD Worker administration page. Those are definitely two places, our team will go in and look prior to during the scoping upgrade.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark, for those thorough answers and for that presentation.
Yep.
And a big thanks to all of you for joining us. We'll stick around for a bit longer in the chat for any questions that may come up. If there are any questions outstanding that we haven't answered at the end, we will follow up with you shortly. So thanks again and have a good one.
Thank you.